The ring hit his palm with a sound like breaking glass. Lady Vivienne Ashford's voice carried across the terrace sharp enough to cut through silk. "I release you from our engagement, Mr. Pemberton. I have known about your gambling debts for 3 months. I have known about the ruby bracelet you bought for Lady Rosalind. I was simply waiting for you to destroy yourself publicly, and tonight you have done exactly that." She turned and walked away, head high, heart shattering with every step. She made it to the front steps before the tears finally fell. And that was when a carriage she had never seen before pulled up from the shadows. Before we continue this incredible journey, please subscribe to our channel and follow Vivienne's story until the very end. Drop a comment below telling us which city you are watching from so we can see how far this story has travelled. Now let us begin. Marcus Pemberton stood frozen on the terrace, his mouth hanging open like a fish pulled from water. The sapphire ring sat cold and accusing in his palm. Around him he could hear the whispers already beginning, spreading like fire through dry grass. Lady Hartwell pressed a hand to her chest. Did she just say gambling debts? Lord Ashford leaned toward his wife. And something about a ruby bracelet for Lady Rosalind Grey. Marcus's face flushed crimson. This was not how the evening was supposed to unfold. He had rehearsed his speech for days. He had planned every word, every gesture. He was supposed to be the one walking away with his dignity intact, leaving behind a weeping, heartbroken woman who would become a cautionary tale at dinner parties. Instead, Vivienne Ashford had turned the knife back on him with surgical precision. "Marcus!" Lady Rosalind appeared at his elbow, her face pale. "What is she talking about? What ruby bracelet?" He grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the garden. "Not here! For God's sake, not here!" But it was already too late. The damage was done. Inside the ballroom, Lady Helena Blackwood watched the terrace drama unfold through the glass doors. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She had known this night would end badly. She had warned Vivienne for months that Marcus Pemberton was a snake wrapped in expensive silk. But even she had not expected Vivienne to strike first. "Lady Helena." A footman appeared at her side. "Lady Vivienne has departed. She asked me to give you this." He pressed a folded note into her hand. Helena opened it with trembling fingers. "Do not follow me. Do not worry. I will write when I can. Trust that I know what I am doing. V." Helena crumpled the paper in her fist. Trust her Vivienne had just publicly destroyed one of the most powerful heirs in London. By tomorrow morning she would be the most talked about woman in England. Some would call her a hero, others would call her ruined, and she had simply walked away into the night. Alone. Outside, Vivienne's composure finally cracked. The tears came hot and fast, blurring the gaslight into smears of gold. She pressed a hand to her mouth to stifle the sob that threatened to escape. 3 years. She had given Marcus Pemberton 3 years of her life. She had believed his pretty words, his passionate declarations, his promises of forever. She had defended him to her friends, to her family, to anyone who dared suggest he was anything less than the perfect gentleman. And all along he had been laughing at her. The gambling had started before their engagement. She had discovered the truth 6 months ago when she overheard 2 gentlemen discussing Marcus's mounting debts at a garden party. At first she had not believed it. Marcus came from one of the wealthiest families in England. Why would he need to gamble? Then she started watching, paying attention, noticing the small details she had willfully ignored before. The way he disappeared for hours at a time during house parties. The strange men who approached him on the street and left with tight expressions. The jewelry he purchased that she never received. the nervous energy that seemed to consume him more and more with each passing month. By the time she discovered the ruby bracelet, she had already made her decision. She would not confront him privately. She would not give him the chance to spin lies, to manipulate her emotions, to twist the situation until she was somehow the villain. No, she would wait. She would gather information. And when the moment came, she would strike so precisely that he would never recover. Tonight had been that moment. Marcus had given her the opening she needed when he asked her onto the terrace. She had seen the rehearsed speech in his eyes before he even opened his mouth. He was going to break their engagement and frame himself as the reluctant hero, the honourable gentleman who simply could not proceed with a marriage when his heart belonged elsewhere. She had watched him build up to his grand moment, and then she had torn it apart, brick by brick. It should have felt like victory. Instead, she just felt empty. A carriage rounded the corner, its dark lacquer gleaming under the street lamps. Vivienne stepped back, pressing herself against the stone pillar at the base of the stairs. She did not want to be seen like this, with tears streaming down her face and her careful composure in ruins. The carriage stopped directly in front of her. Vivienne's heart stuttered. This was not her family's carriage. This was not any vehicle she recognized. The horses were magnificent, black as midnight, their harnesses adorned with silver fittings that caught the light like stars. The door swung open. "Get in, Lady Vivienne." The voice was deep, commanding, utterly unfamiliar. "Before the vultures descend." She could not see the speaker's face. The interior of the carriage was swathed in shadow, revealing only the suggestion of a masculine form. Broad shoulders, the glint of a signet ring. "I do not know you." Her voice came out steadier than she expected. "I will not enter a stranger's carriage in the middle of the night." "You know my name," the voice replied. "Everyone does. I am Alexander Thornbury." Vivienne's breath caught. Alexander Thornbury, the Duke of Ashworth, known throughout society as the Ghost Duke because he so rarely appeared at social functions, widower, rumoured to be cold, calculating and ruthlessly intelligent, one of the wealthiest men in England and a man she had never spoken to in her life. "Why would the Duke of Ashworth offer me his carriage?" she demanded. "Because in approximately 3 minutes, Lady Hartwell will emerge from that ballroom with her entourage of gossips, and they will descend upon you like carrion birds upon a fresh kill. You will be subjected to false sympathy, probing questions, and the kind of performative concern that is designed entirely to extract information for tomorrow's scandal sheets. Is that what you want?" Vivienne glanced toward the ballroom doors. Through the glass she could see movement. Figures gathering, faces turning in her direction. "Why do you care what happens to me?" "Get in the carriage, Lady Vivienne. I will explain everything once we are moving." Every instinct screamed at her to refuse. This was madness. Entering an unknown man's carriage alone in the middle of the night, with her reputation already hanging by a thread. But the alternative was facing Lady Hartwell's gleeful interrogation, enduring the pitying smiles of women who had always envied her engagement to Marcus, answering question after question while her heart bled inside her chest. She climbed into the carriage. The door closed behind her and the vehicle lurched into motion immediately. Vivienne found herself seated across from a man who seemed carved from shadows. He was younger than she had expected, perhaps 30, with dark hair swept back from a face of hard angles and sharp planes. His eyes were the grey of storm clouds, and they watched her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "You are crying," he observed. "How perceptive of you." She wiped at her cheeks with the back of her gloved hand. "Perhaps next you will observe that the sky is dark, because it is night time." Something flickered in those grey eyes. Amusement, perhaps, or surprise. "You have a sharp tongue, Lady Vivienne." "I have had a sharp evening. You will forgive me if my manners are not at their best. There is nothing to forgive." He leaned back against the velvet seat. "You performed magnificently on that terrace. Pemberton will not recover from this for years." Vivienne stiffened. "You were watching?" "Everyone was watching by the end. You made certain of that." He tilted his head. "Did you plan it? The public humiliation?" "I planned to end my engagement on my own terms. The public humiliation was simply a fortunate consequence." "Fortunate for whom?" "For justice." Her chin lifted. "Marcus Pemberton is a liar, a cheat, and a gambler. He was going to break our engagement and blame it on some imaginary fault of mine. He was going to walk away looking like a martyred saint while I was left with the ruins of my reputation. I simply refused to let that happen." The Duke studied her for a long moment. The carriage wheels rattled against the cobblestones, filling the silence between them. "3 years ago," he said finally, "you attended a house party at the Wendham estate. There was an incident involving a servant girl. She was accused of stealing a diamond brooch from Lady Wendham's jewellery case." Vivienne frowned. The memory surfaced slowly, hazy with time. "I remember something about that. The girl was quite young, 14 or 15. She was 14. And she was innocent. The brooch had fallen behind Lady Wendham's dressing table, but no one was interested in the truth. They had already decided the servant was guilty. She was going to be dismissed without a reference, which in practical terms meant she would never find respectable employment again. She would have ended up on the streets. I remember now. The memory sharpened into focus. I found the brooch myself. It was wedged between the wall and the dressing table. I brought it to Lady Wendham and insisted she clear the girl's name. You did more than that." The Duke's voice was quiet. "You threatened to tell everyone at the party that Lady Wendham had nearly destroyed an innocent child's life through carelessness and prejudice. You forced her to apologize to the girl personally and give her a bonus in wages." Vivienne shifted uncomfortably. "It was the right thing to do. Anyone would have done the same." "No." His grey eyes bore into hers. "Anyone would not have done the same. I watched a dozen other guests walk past that crying girl without a second glance. You were the only one who stopped, the only one who cared enough to search for the truth. Why are you telling me this?" "Because that girl was my sister." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. "Your sister." Vivienne's mind raced. "But you are the Duke of Ashworth. Your family is one of the oldest and most respected in England. How could your sister be working as a servant? She is illegitimate." His voice held no shame, only matter-of-fact acceptance. "My father's daughter by a woman who was not my mother. When my father died, I wanted to bring her into the household properly, give her the life she deserved. But my mother was still alive then, and she refused to acknowledge my father's bastard under any circumstances." He paused, his jaw tightening. "My sister Clara refused my charity. She insisted on making her own way. She found employment as a lady's maid using an assumed name. I tried to argue with her, but she has my father's stubbornness. She wanted to prove that she could survive on her own merits. And she ended up at the Wendham estate, where she was nearly destroyed by a careless accusation. If you had not intervened, her life would have been ruined. Instead, she continued her employment, saved her wages, and eventually opened a small dressmaking shop in Bath. She is successful, she is happy, and she owes all of it to a woman she never properly met." Vivienne did not know what to say. She remembered the crying girl with the rough hands and the terrified eyes. She had never thought about her again after that day. It had simply seemed like the obvious thing to do, to seek the truth and defend someone who could not defend themselves. "I have watched you for 3 years," the Duke continued, "not in any intrusive sense, but I have made it my business to know your character, your circumstances, your situation. When you became engaged to Marcus Pemberton, I hoped I was wrong about him. I hoped that perhaps he would prove worthy of you. He did not. No, he did not." The Duke's expression hardened. "I tried to warn your father 6 months ago. I provided evidence of Pemberton's gambling debts, his associations with unsavory moneylenders, his affairs with other women. Your father dismissed me. He said I was attempting to sabotage your engagement for my own purposes." Vivienne felt cold. "My father knew. He knew about all of this, and he still wanted me to marry Marcus." "Your father is in debt himself. Not as severely as Pemberton, but significantly. Marcus's family promised a generous settlement upon your marriage. Your father was willing to overlook certain flaws in exchange for financial stability." The betrayal cut deeper than Marcus's infidelity ever could. Her own father had sold her to a man he knew was worthless simply to pay his creditors. "Why are you telling me this now?" Her voice came out hoarse. "Why come for me tonight of all nights? Because tonight you demonstrated exactly the kind of courage I expected from you, and because tomorrow you will need protection. Protection from what? From Marcus Pemberton's revenge." The Duke's grey eyes were stone. "You humiliated him publicly. He will not let that stand. He will spread lies about you. He will poison society against you. He will do everything in his power to destroy your reputation completely. He can try. He will succeed, unless you have a more powerful ally." The Duke leaned forward. "I am offering you sanctuary, Lady Vivienne. My country estate, Thornbury Hall, is 3 hours from London. You may stay there as my guest until the scandal dies down. My aunt, Mrs. Eleanor Blackwood, lives at the hall permanently. Her presence will satisfy any concerns about propriety." Vivienne's mind spun. This was too much, too fast. 3 hours ago she had been a woman engaged to one of the most eligible men in London. Now she was a woman with a shattered engagement, a treacherous father, and a mysterious duke offering her refuge. "Why would you do this for me? You barely know me." "I know enough." His voice softened slightly. "You are brave. You are principled. You defended a servant girl no one else cared about simply because it was right. Those qualities deserve protection. And you expect nothing in return." "I expect nothing." He held her gaze. "I am repaying a debt that you did not even know I owed." The carriage slowed. Through the window, Vivienne could see they were approaching a posting inn on the outskirts of the city. Fresh horses would be waiting. This was her last chance to change her mind, to demand to be taken home to face whatever consequences awaited her in London. She thought of her father willing to sell her for money. She thought of Marcus, his handsome face twisted with fury. She thought of Lady Hartwell's gossip mill grinding her name into dust. "Very well," she said. "I accept your offer." The Duke nodded once. "A wise decision. We will reach Thornbury Hall by dawn." The carriage picked up speed again, leaving London behind. Vivienne watched the city lights fade into darkness and wondered what exactly she had gotten herself into. She must have dozed at some point because she jerked awake as the carriage slowed. Grey morning light filtered through the windows. She straightened, embarrassed to have fallen asleep in front of a man she barely knew. The Duke was watching her. He had not slept. His grey eyes were alert, his posture unchanged from hours earlier. Did the man never tire? "We are approaching Thornbury Hall," he said. "There is something you should know before we arrive." Something in his tone made her nervous. "What is it?" Before he could answer, the carriage came to a full stop. Vivienne heard the driver climbing down, heard the crunch of gravel under boots. And then she heard something else. A child's voice, high and clear and filled with joy. "Papa, Papa is home." The carriage door flew open and a small figure hurled itself inside. Vivienne caught an impression of dark curls, grey eyes, exactly like the Duke's, and a face alight with happiness. "Papa, you came back. You promised you would come back, and you did." The little girl threw her arms around the Duke's neck. Something extraordinary happened to Alexander Thornbury's face. The hard angles softened, the cold eyes warmed. The man who had seemed carved from stone moments ago transformed into something entirely human. "Charlotte," he wrapped his arms around the child. "Of course I came back. Did you doubt me?" "Never." The girl pulled back, beaming. "But Aunt Eleanor said you might be delayed. She said London business always takes longer than expected." "Aunt Eleanor worries too much." The child suddenly seemed to notice that she and her father were not alone. Her grey eyes went wide as she stared at Vivienne. "Papa, there is a lady in our carriage." "Yes." The Duke's expression grew careful. "Charlotte, this is Lady Vivienne Ashford. She will be staying with us for a time. Lady Vivienne, this is my daughter, Lady Charlotte Thornbury." His daughter. The Duke of Ashworth had a daughter, a secret he had apparently hidden from all of society. Charlotte studied Vivienne with the unfiltered curiosity of childhood. "Are you very tired? You look very tired. And your dress is pretty, but it is crumpled. Did you sleep in the carriage? I tried to sleep in the carriage once, and it was dreadfully uncomfortable." "Charlotte," a woman's voice carried from outside, "remove yourself from that carriage immediately. You are smothering our guest before she has even set foot on solid ground." The child made a face, but obeyed, scrambling out of the carriage with more energy than grace. Vivienne followed, stepping down onto the gravel drive of Thornbury Hall. The estate sprawled before her, all honey-coloured stone and climbing roses and windows that caught the morning light. It was beautiful, but Vivienne barely saw it. Her attention was fixed on the woman descending the front steps. Mrs. Eleanor Blackwood was perhaps 60, with iron-grey hair and eyes that missed nothing. She moved with the confidence of a woman who had spent her entire life being right and saw no reason to change now. "Lady Vivienne Ashford," she said in a tone that suggested she was taking measurements and making judgments. "You are smaller than I expected." "Aunt Eleanor!" The Duke's voice held a warning. "What I am simply making an observation. Small women are often fiercer than large ones. It is because they have more to prove." She turned her assessing gaze back to Vivienne. "You publicly humiliated Marcus Pemberton at the Hartwell ball and then disappeared into the night with my nephew. The gossip has already reached us via messenger. By tomorrow, you will be either a heroine or a harlot, depending on who is telling the story." "Aunt Eleanor, I prefer heroine," the old woman continued, ignoring her nephew entirely. "Harlots are so tediously common. Come inside, Lady Vivienne. You need food rest and a change of clothing. We will discuss the destruction of your reputation after you have recovered sufficiently to appreciate it." She turned and swept back into the house. Charlotte tugged at Vivienne's hand. "Do not mind Aunt Eleanor. She is grumpy, but she makes excellent biscuits. Would you like to see the gardens? I can show you where the rabbits live. There is a family of them near the old fountain, and they are not afraid of me anymore because I bring them carrots." Vivienne looked down at the little girl with her father's eyes and her eager smile, and something shifted in her chest, something that felt dangerously like warmth. "I would like that very much," she said. Charlotte's face lit up like a sunrise. The Duke watched this exchange with an unreadable expression. Then he offered Vivienne the slightest nod and followed his aunt into the house. Vivienne stood in the morning light holding the hand of a child she had not known existed an hour ago and wondered how her life had changed so completely in a single night. She had come here seeking refuge from scandal. But as Charlotte began chattering about rabbits and gardens and her favorite hiding spots, Vivienne sensed that she had found something far more complicated and far more dangerous to her heart. Charlotte did not let go of Vivienne's hand for the entire walk through the gardens. She talked without pause, pointing out her favorite rose bushes, the tree she had tried to climb last summer before her governess caught her the bench where she liked to read on sunny afternoons. "And this is where the rabbits live," Charlotte announced, crouching near a hedge. "You have to be very quiet, or they will not come out. They are shy, like Papa." Vivienne knelt beside her. "Your father does not seem shy to me." "That is because you do not know him yet. He pretends to be stern, but really he is just afraid." "Afraid of what?" Charlotte's small face grew serious. "Everything. Losing things, losing people. That is why he does not like visitors. He says people always leave eventually, so it is better not to let them in at all." The words struck Vivienne harder than they should have. She thought of her own father, who had been willing to trade her for money. She thought of Marcus, who had traded her for pleasure. Perhaps the Duke was right to keep his walls high. "Lady Vivienne." A footman appeared at the edge of the garden. "Mrs. Blackwood requests your presence in the morning room. She says breakfast is served, and she will not have it grow cold on your account." Charlotte giggled. "You had better go. Aunt Eleanor becomes very cross about cold eggs." Vivienne followed the footman into the house, leaving Charlotte to her rabbits. The morning room was bright and warm with a fire crackling in the grate, despite the spring weather. Aunt Eleanor sat at the head of the table, buttering toast with the precision of a surgeon. "Sit," she commanded. "Eat. You look half-starved." Vivienne obeyed. She had not realized how hungry she was until she saw the spread before her. Eggs, bacon, fresh bread, jam fruit. Her stomach growled, loud enough to be embarrassing. "When did you last eat?" Aunt Eleanor asked. "Yesterday afternoon, I think. Before the ball." "Foolish girl. No wonder you look ready to faint." She pushed a plate toward Vivienne. "Eat first. Interrogation second." Vivienne ate. The food was simple but perfect, and she consumed far more than was ladylike before she finally set down her fork. "Better." Aunt Eleanor nodded with satisfaction. "Now, tell me everything." "Your nephew already knows the details." "My nephew knows facts. I want feelings. There is a difference." Vivienne hesitated. She was not accustomed to sharing her feelings with strangers. But something about Aunt Eleanor's sharp gaze made her feel that evasion would be both pointless and insulting. "I am angry," she admitted. "I am humiliated. I am relieved. I am terrified. I do not know which emotion is winning at any given moment." "Good. You are honest. I despise dishonest women." Aunt Eleanor sipped her tea. "You loved him, this Pemberton creature." "I thought I did. 3 years ago, when we became engaged, I believed he was everything I wanted. Handsome, charming, attentive. He made me feel seen. And now I realize he only made me feel seen because he was studying me, learning my weaknesses, figuring out how to use me." "Men like that are common as fleas," Aunt Eleanor said flatly. "The trick is learning to spot them before they bite." The door opened, and the Duke entered. He had changed from his evening clothes into riding attire, and he looked every inch the country gentleman, except for his eyes. Those grey eyes held the same watchful intensity they had shown in the carriage. "You are awake," he observed. Your powers of observation remain sharp, Vivienne replied. Aunt Eleanor made a sound that might have been a laugh. She has a tongue on her, Alexander. I approve. I am pleased my choice of houseguest meets with your approval. He took a seat at the table but did not reach for food. Lady Vivienne, we should discuss practical matters. How long do you intend to stay? I had not thought that far ahead. Then allow me to think for you. The scandal will peak within the first week. By the second week, some new disaster will capture society's attention. By the third week, you may safely return to London without being mobbed by gossips at every turn. 3 weeks, then. 3 weeks. He nodded. During that time, you will be presented as a guest of my aunt, a distant connection of her late husband's family, visiting for your health. The country air and so forth. My health. It is the most boring possible explanation which makes it the most believable. No one gossips about a woman recovering from exhaustion in the countryside. Aunt Eleanor snorted. Except they will gossip regardless, Alexander. A young, beautiful woman appearing at your estate 3 hours after creating the scandal of the season, the gossips will not care about official explanations. Then we shall ensure there is nothing improper for them to observe. His voice hardened. Lady Vivienne will have her own wing of the house. She will be chaperoned at all times. There will be no hint of scandal attached to her stay here. Vivienne felt something cold settle in her chest. He was protecting her, yes, but he was also making it very clear that he wanted distance between them. I understand, she said quietly. You have done more than enough already. I will not impose on your hospitality longer than necessary. Something flickered in his grey eyes. That is not what I meant. Is it not? Before he could respond, the door burst open and Charlotte flew in, her hair wild and her dress smudged with dirt. Papa, Lady Vivienne, the rabbits came out and I fed them and one of them ate right from my hand. The Duke's face transformed again, softening into something almost tender. Did it now? Yes. And I have named him Sir Whiskers, because his whiskers are very long and very distinguished. She climbed onto the chair beside Vivienne. Will you come see him tomorrow? He might come out again, if you are very quiet. I would like that very much. Charlotte beamed. Then her face grew thoughtful. Papa, may Lady Vivienne stay forever. The table went silent. Charlotte, Aunt Eleanor said carefully, Lady Vivienne has her own home, her own family. She cannot stay forever. But why not? She is kind and she listens when I talk, and she did not tell me to be quiet even once. Charlotte turned pleading eyes on her father. Please, Papa, I want her to stay. The Duke's expression had gone carefully blank. Charlotte, we will discuss this later. But, Papa. Later. The word was gentle but final. Charlotte's face crumpled and she slid off her chair and ran from the room. Vivienne rose instinctively. I should go after her. No! The Duke's voice stopped her. Let her be. She needs to learn that she cannot have everything she wants simply by asking. She is a child. She asked for a friend. That is hardly an unreasonable request. His jaw tightened. You do not understand the situation. Then explain it to me. They stared at each other across the table. Aunt Eleanor watched with undisguised interest, making no move to intervene. Charlotte's mother died giving birth to her, the Duke said finally. Since then, I have kept her away from society, away from people who might hurt her, abandon her, use her to get to me. You have kept her isolated. I have kept her safe. Safe and lonely are not the same thing. His eyes flashed. You have been here for 3 hours. Do not presume to lecture me on my daughter's welfare." Vivienne knew she should back down. She was a guest in this house, dependent on this man's goodwill. She had no right to challenge him about his own child. But she thought of Charlotte's eager face, her desperate grip on Vivienne's hand, her transparent longing for connection. "I am not lecturing you," she said quietly. "I am observing. Charlotte is starved for affection. She attached herself to me within minutes of meeting me because she has no one else. Your aunt is here, yes, but you said yourself that you keep her isolated from visitors, from other children, from anyone who might become close to her. For her protection, from what the world life loss." Vivienne shook her head. "You cannot protect someone by locking them away. All you do is teach them that love is dangerous and people cannot be trusted." The Duke's face had gone pale. "You know nothing of what I have lost." "You are right, I do not. But I know what it is to be used by someone you trusted. I know what it is to have your faith in people shattered. And I know that hiding from the world does not heal those wounds. It only lets them fester." She turned and walked out of the room before he could respond. She found Charlotte in the garden sitting on the bench near the rabbit hedge with her knees pulled up to her chest. The little girl's shoulders were shaking. Vivienne sat down beside her without speaking. "Papa is angry," Charlotte whispered. "He is not angry at you. He is always angry. He tries to hide it, but I can tell. He is angry at everything. At the world, at God, at Mamma for dying." Her voice broke. "Sometimes I think he's angry at me too, for being born." Vivienne's heart cracked open. "Charlotte, look at me." The girl lifted her tear-stained face. "Your father loves you more than anything in the world. I saw his face when you ran to the carriage this morning. I saw how he held you. That is not the behavior of a man who is angry at you." "Then why does he push everyone away? Why does he not let me have friends? Why are we always alone?" "Because he is afraid." Vivienne took Charlotte's small hands in her own. "When you love someone very much and you lose them, it feels like the world is ending. And the idea of losing someone else, of going through that pain again, becomes so terrifying that you try to prevent it the only way you can, by not letting yourself love anyone new." Charlotte's brow furrowed. "That seems very sad." "It is very sad. Do you think Papa will ever stop being afraid?" Vivienne looked up and saw the Duke standing at the edge of the garden watching them. She didn't know how long he had been there or how much he had heard. "I think," she said carefully, "that sometimes people need help remembering how to be brave." The Duke turned and walked back into the house. Charlotte did not notice. She wiped her eyes and leaned against Vivienne's shoulder. "Will you stay for 3 weeks?" "Papa said 3 weeks." "I will stay for 3 weeks. And you will come see Sir Whiskers tomorrow. I promise." Charlotte smiled, small but real. "I am glad you came, Lady Vivienne, even if Papa is acting strange." Vivienne put her arm around the little girl and said nothing, because she was beginning to suspect that staying at Thornbury Hall for 3 weeks would be far more complicated than she had ever imagined. The first week passed in a strange rhythm. Vivienne saw the Duke only at meals where he was unfailingly polite and completely distant. He asked after her comfort. He inquired about her health. He made no reference to their argument in the morning room, but she caught him watching her sometimes, when she was reading to Charlotte in the library, when she was helping the little girl practice her letters, when she was walking in the gardens with Aunt Eleanor, learning the names of flowers she had never seen before. He watched her like a man studying a puzzle he could not solve. Charlotte, meanwhile, had attached herself to Vivienne completely. She appeared at breakfast each morning with new things to show her. A bird's nest she had found, a drawing she had made, a particularly interesting rock from the stream. "You are spoiling her," Aunt Eleanor observed one afternoon as they watched Charlotte attempt to teach Vivienne how to play croquet. "I am paying attention to her. That is not the same as spoiling. It is when she has never had it before." The older woman's voice softened slightly. "You are good with her, better than any of the governesses we have employed. She is easy to love. She is, and that is precisely the problem." Aunt Eleanor turned to face Vivienne directly. "When you leave, she will be devastated. You understand that—" Vivienne's chest tightened. "I have tried not to think about it." "Then start thinking about it. That child has lost her mother and been isolated from the world by a father who loves her too much to risk losing her. You have given her hope, Lady Vivienne. When you walk away, you will take that hope with you. What would you have me do? Refuse to spend time with her? Push her away the way her father does? I would have you consider the consequences of your kindness." Aunt Eleanor's eyes were sharp. "And I would have you consider whether 3 weeks is really all you intend to stay." Before Vivienne could respond, a footman appeared with a silver tray bearing a letter. "For Lady Vivienne," he announced. "Express messenger from London." Vivienne took the letter with trembling hands. She recognized Helena's handwriting immediately. "Dearest V," the letter began. "I am writing with urgent news. Marcus Pemberton is telling everyone that you broke your engagement because you were having an affair with the Duke of Ashworth. He claims you were conducting a secret liaison for months, and that you manipulated him into ending things publicly so you could run to your lover without scandal." The letter continued, each word more devastating than the last. Society was divided. Some believed Marcus's lies, others defended Vivienne, but the damage was spreading. Her father was furious. Her mother had taken to her bed. Helena had done what she could, but against a man determined to destroy her words were not enough. "You must return," Helena wrote. "You must face these accusations directly. Hiding in the countryside only makes you look guilty. Please, V, come home before it is too late." Vivienne's hands shook so badly she could barely hold the paper. "Lady Vivienne," the Duke's voice came from behind her. "You are pale. What has happened?" She thrust the letter at him without speaking. She watched his face as he read, watched the anger build behind his grey eyes like a storm gathering on the horizon. "Pemberton," he said, his voice deadly quiet. "He accuses you of conducting an affair with me." "Yes. For months. Yes. When we have never exchanged a single word before last night. He does not care about truth. He only cares about revenge." The Duke folded the letter carefully, his movements precise and controlled. But Vivienne could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his jaw had locked tight. "I will kill him." "You will do no such thing. He is destroying your reputation with lies. He is slandering my name. He is doing exactly what you predicted he would do." Vivienne forced herself to breathe. "You warned me this would happen. You were right. But murder is not the solution." "What is the solution then? Allow him to continue spreading poison until no one in London will receive you." "I do not know." Her voice cracked. "I do not know what to do." "Helena says I should return and face the accusations. But what would I say? How would I prove that we were not having an affair when I am currently living in your house?" The Duke was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was strange. "There is one way." "What? We could marry?" Vivienne stared at him. "I beg your pardon." "If we married, the scandal would transform. It would no longer be a sordid affair. It would be a romance, a secret courtship conducted properly, ending in a respectable union. Society loves a wedding. They would forgive everything for the sake of a good love story. You cannot be serious. I am entirely serious. He met her eyes. I am offering you my name, Lady Vivienne, my protection, my title. As my wife, you would be untouchable. No one would dare spread rumours about the Duchess of Ashworth. Vivienne's head spun. You are proposing a marriage of convenience to a woman you barely know, simply to counter a scandal. I am proposing a solution that benefits us both. You need protection from Pemberton's lies. I need— He paused. Charlotte needs a mother. She has blossomed under your attention. She loves you already. If you became my wife, you could stay. You could be the presence in her life that she desperately needs. Vivienne felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. 3 hours ago she had been arguing with this man about his parenting. Now he was asking her to become his wife. What about love? She heard herself ask. What about affection? What about all the things that are supposed to matter in a marriage? Something shuttered in his grey eyes. I cannot offer you those things. My heart died with my first wife, but I can offer you respect, security, a home, a child who already adores you. Is that not enough? Was it enough? Could she marry a man who told her plainly that he would never love her? But then she thought of Charlotte. Charlotte who cried because she had no friends. Charlotte who clung to Vivienne like a lifeline. Charlotte who deserved so much more than a lonely childhood in a beautiful prison. And she thought of herself, of Marcus's betrayal, of her father's treachery, of a society that would destroy her reputation based on lies. What did she have to go back to? If I say yes, she said slowly, what would our marriage look like? In practical terms, we would live as partners, companions. You would have your own chambers, your own freedom. I would make no demands on you that you were not willing to meet. In public, we would present a united front. In private, we would be— He searched for the word. Friends. Friends. Is that not better than enemies or strangers? Vivienne looked at this man who had rescued her without being asked, who had offered her sanctuary without conditions, who loved his daughter so fiercely that he had built walls around both of their hearts. She thought of how his face softened when Charlotte ran to him. She thought of the way he watched Vivienne, with his daughter hungry and hopeful and terrified all at once. She thought of Aunt Eleanor's words about consequences and hope, and what happened when you taught a child to love and then walked away. Yes, she said. The Duke blinked. Yes. Yes, I will marry you. Not for my reputation, not for your name, but for Charlotte. She held his gaze. And because I think perhaps you need saving as much as I do. Something flickered in his grey eyes, something that looked almost like hope. Thank you, he said quietly. Do not thank me yet. Vivienne straightened her shoulders. I have conditions. Name them. Charlotte will not be isolated anymore. She will have friends. She will have experiences. She will be allowed to be a child, not a prisoner. Agreed. And you will stop hiding from her. You will be present. You will let her see the father who loves her, not the stranger who keeps her at arm's length. His jaw tightened, but he nodded. One more thing. Vivienne stepped closer to him. You say your heart died with your first wife. You say you cannot offer me love. But I do not believe the heart works that way. I think your heart is very much alive and very much afraid, and I think you have spent 6 years building walls to keep everyone out. And I intend to tear those walls down, not because I expect you to love me, but because Charlotte deserves a father who knows how to feel, and you deserve to be more than a ghost haunting your own life." The Duke stared at her. For a moment, she saw something crack in his careful composure, something raw and wounded and real. Then he extended his hand. "Do we have an agreement, Lady Vivienne?" She took his hand. His grip was warm and strong and steady. "We have an agreement, Your Grace." Behind them, Charlotte's delighted shriek rang out across the garden. She had finally hit the croquet ball through the wicket. Neither of them turned to look. They stood in the afternoon light, hands clasped, bound by a promise that felt like both a salvation and a surrender. Vivienne did not know what the future held. She did not know if she could keep her promise to tear down his walls. She did not know if a marriage without love could ever become something more. But she knew with sudden clarity that she had just made the most important decision of her life, and there was no going back. The wedding took place 5 days later in the chapel at Thornbury Hall. It was small and quiet, witnessed only by Aunt Eleanor, Charlotte, the household staff, and a vicar who had known the Duke since childhood. Vivienne wore a cream silk gown that had belonged to Aunt Eleanor in her youth, hastily altered to fit. There were no flowers, no music, no guests from London. Charlotte served as flower girl, scattering rose petals with such enthusiasm that half of them landed in the vicar's hair. When the moment came to exchange vows, Vivienne looked into Alexander's grey eyes and saw nothing, no warmth, no fear, no hope, just the careful blankness of a man who had learned to feel nothing at all. "I will," he said when prompted. "I will," she echoed. And just like that, she became the Duchess of Ashworth. The wedding breakfast was subdued. Aunt Eleanor made polite conversation. Charlotte chattered about her plans to show Vivienne every corner of the estate now that she was staying forever. Alexander ate in silence, responding only when directly addressed. When the meal ended, he stood abruptly. "I have business to attend to in my study. Please excuse me." He was gone before Vivienne could respond. Charlotte's face fell. "Papa did not even kiss you. I thought husbands were supposed to kiss their wives at weddings." "Your father and I have an understanding," Vivienne said carefully. "Our marriage is different." "Different how?" "Charlotte." Aunt Eleanor's voice was gentle but firm. "Why don't you take Vivienne to see the portrait gallery? I believe you have been wanting to show her the painting of your great-grandmother." The little girl brightened immediately. "Oh yes, she looks exactly like me. Everyone says so. Come, Vivienne, I will show you." Charlotte grabbed her hand and pulled her from the room. The portrait gallery was long and cold, lined with generations of Thornbury ancestors staring down from gilded frames. Charlotte pointed out her favourites with the enthusiasm of a museum guide, explaining who had fought in which war and who had scandalously married beneath their station. And then they reached the end of the gallery. "That is Mamma," Charlotte said quietly. Vivienne stopped. The portrait showed a young woman with pale blonde hair and gentle blue eyes. She was beautiful in a fragile way, like a flower that might bruise at the slightest touch. She was holding an infant in her arms, a tiny bundle wrapped in white lace. "Papa had it painted from memory," Charlotte continued. "After she died, he said he wanted me to know what she looked like. She was lovely. Everyone says that." Charlotte's voice was small. "They say I look like Papa, but I have her smile. I do not know if that is true. I do not remember her smile." Vivienne knelt beside the girl. "What do you remember about her?" "Nothing. I was only a baby when she died." Charlotte's eyes remained fixed on the portrait. But sometimes I dream about her. She is singing to me and her voice is soft and I feel safe. And then I wake up and she is gone and I remember that she was never really there at all." Vivienne's heart ached. "Charlotte, do you think she would have liked me if she had lived? I think she would have loved you more than anything in the world. Papa says she did love me, that she chose to have me even though the doctors said it was dangerous, that she died giving me life, and she never regretted it for a moment." Tears welled in Charlotte's grey eyes. "But sometimes I think Papa wishes she had made a different choice. That is not true." "How do you know?" "Because I have seen how he looks at you." Vivienne took Charlotte's hands. "Your father loves you desperately. He would not trade you for anything, not even to have your mother back." "Then why does he push me away? Why does he not want to be near me?" Vivienne had no answer. She pulled Charlotte into her arms and held her, while the little girl cried beneath her mother's painted gaze. That night Vivienne found herself alone in her chambers. The rooms were beautiful, decorated in soft blues and creams, with a view of the gardens from every window. A fire crackled in the grate. A maid had laid out her nightclothes and turned down the bed. But Vivienne could not sleep. She paced the floor, her mind churning. She had married a stranger, a man who had shown her kindness and then retreated behind walls so thick she could not find a single crack. She had promised to tear those walls down. But how? How did you save someone who did not want to be saved? A knock at the door made her jump. "Come in." It was Alexander. He had changed from his wedding clothes into a simple shirt and trousers. His dark hair was dishevelled as if he had been running his hands through it. "I came to see if you had everything you need." "I do. Thank you." He nodded, but did not leave. He stood in the doorway looking at her with those unreadable grey eyes. "I know this is not the wedding you imagined," he said finally. "I know this is not the marriage you deserve." "What marriage do I deserve, Your Grace?" "Alexander," his voice was rough. "You are my wife now. You should call me by my name." "Very well, Alexander." She met his gaze. "What marriage do I deserve? One with love, with passion, with a husband who looks at you and sees everything he has ever wanted." He took a breath. "I cannot give you those things. I told you that from the beginning." "You did." "And you agreed to marry me anyway." "I did." He shook his head slowly. "I do not understand you. You could have returned to London. You could have fought the rumours yourself. You could have found another man, a better man, who could give you everything I cannot. Why did you choose this?" Vivienne considered her answer carefully. "Because Charlotte needed me. Because you needed me, even if you cannot admit it. And because I have spent my entire life being chosen by the wrong people for the wrong reasons. For once I wanted to make my own choice. And you chose me, a cold, broken man who has nothing to offer but his name. I chose the man who rescued a stranger in the middle of the night because she once showed kindness to his sister. I chose the man who loves his daughter so fiercely that he would rather keep her prisoner than risk losing her. I chose the man who offered me protection without asking for anything in return." She stepped closer to him. "You are not cold, Alexander. You are frozen. There is a difference." His breath caught. "Vivienne, go to bed." She turned away. "We can discuss this more tomorrow." She heard him hesitate. For a moment, she thought he might say something else. Then the door clicked shut, and she was alone. The weeks that followed were a strange kind of torture. By day, Vivienne threw herself into her new role. She learned the rhythms of Thornbury Hall, met with the housekeeper to discuss menus and staffing, visited tenant families with Aunt Eleanor to introduce herself as the new Duchess. She spent hours with Charlotte reading and walking and playing games. She began organizing the library, which had fallen into chaos since the last Duchess's death. She saw Alexander at breakfast. She saw him at dinner. She saw him in passing as he came and went from his study. But they were never alone. He made certain of it. When she entered a room, he found a reason to leave. When she attempted conversation, he responded in monosyllables. When Charlotte begged him to join them for their afternoon walks, he always had urgent business that could not wait. It was maddening. "He is afraid of you," Aunt Eleanor observed one afternoon. They were sitting in the drawing room while Charlotte practiced piano in the music room next door. Vivienne was pretending to embroider, but had not made a single stitch in 20 minutes. "Afraid of me? That is absurd." "Is it? You challenged him. You promised to tear down his walls. Do you think a man who has spent 6 years hiding from his own heart would simply accept that without resistance? I thought he might at least try." "He is trying. That is why he is avoiding you." Aunt Eleanor set down her teacup. "You frighten him, Vivienne. You make him feel things he has been running from for years. His only defense is distance." "Then how am I supposed to reach him?" "You wait. You persist. You refuse to give up even when he pushes you away." The older woman's eyes softened. "Love is patient, child, even when it is not returned." Love. Was that what this was? Was she falling in love with a man who might never love her back? The thought terrified her. That night Vivienne could not sleep. She wandered the halls of Thornbury Hall, wrapped in a shawl against the chill. The house was silent, its inhabitants long since retired to their beds. She found herself drawn to the library. A light flickered beneath the door. She pushed it open and found Alexander sitting in a chair by the dying fire, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He was not reading. He was not working. He was simply staring into the flames. "You should be asleep," he said without looking up. "So should you." "I do not sleep well." He took a long drink. "I never have. Not since your wife died." He flinched. "Yes." Vivienne moved into the room and sat in the chair across from him. The fire cast shadows across his face, making him look older than his 30 years. "Tell me about her." "Why?" "Because she is the ghost standing between us. Because I am sleeping in the rooms she once occupied and wearing the title she once held. Because Charlotte cries for her in the night, and you cannot even speak her name." His hand tightened on the glass. Her name was Margaret. "Tell me about Margaret." For a long moment she thought he would refuse. Then he spoke, his voice low and rough. "I met her when I was 20. She was the daughter of a neighbouring landowner, pretty, gentle, everything a duke's wife should be. Our families expected us to marry, so we did." "Did you love her?" "I cared for her. I respected her. I wanted to make her happy." He stared into the fire. "But love, the kind of love that poets write about, no. I did not feel that for her, and she knew it." Vivienne's chest tightened. She knew. Margaret was not a fool. She knew I had married her for duty, not passion. She accepted it because she believed love could grow between us over time. His voice cracked. "She was wrong." "What happened?" "She became pregnant within the first year. She was so happy. She said a child would bring us closer, would give us something to love together." Alexander closed his eyes. "The pregnancy was difficult from the beginning. The doctors warned her. They said another child could kill her, but she refused to listen. She said Charlotte was a blessing, and she would bring her into the world no matter the cost. Vivienne felt tears prick her eyes. She chose Charlotte. She chose to die. The words were bitter. She chose to leave me alone with an infant I did not know how to raise and a guilt I could not escape. She chose to make me responsible for her death every time I looked at our daughter. That is not fair. None of it is fair. He opened his eyes and looked at her directly for the first time. I failed her, Vivienne. I married her without loving her. I made her feel unwanted. I drove her to seek meaning in a pregnancy that killed her. Her blood is on my hands. No. Vivienne leaned forward. Her choice was her own. You cannot claim responsibility for decisions you did not make. Can I not? If I had loved her properly, she would not have needed a child to feel complete. If I had been the husband she deserved, she would have listened to the doctors. She would have chosen to live. You do not know that. I know that I failed her. His voice shook, and I swore I would never fail anyone that way again. I would never let myself care so much that I could destroy someone with my inadequacy. Understanding crashed over Vivienne like a cold wave. This was why he kept Charlotte at a distance. This was why he had offered her a marriage without love. He was not incapable of feeling. He was terrified of it. Alexander. She reached for him. Look at me. He pulled away. Do not. Do not what care about you too late. I already do. Then stop. He stood abruptly, the whiskey glass shattering on the floor. Stop trying to save me. Stop trying to fix what cannot be fixed. I am not one of your charity projects, Vivienne. I am not a broken toy you can mend with patience and kindness. I never said you were. Then what do you want from me? His voice rose. What do you expect, that I will suddenly transform into the husband of your dreams, that I will fall at your feet and declare my undying love? That is not going to happen. I have nothing left to give. Vivienne stood to face him. I do not want you to fall at my feet. I do not want declarations or poetry or grand romantic gestures. I want you to stop running. I want you to be present. I want you to look at your daughter without guilt and at me without fear. I cannot. You mean you will not? What difference does it make? All the difference in the world. She stepped closer until they were inches apart. Charlotte needs you. She needs a father who holds her when she cries, who laughs at her jokes, who shows her what it means to be loved. You are so busy punishing yourself for the past that you are missing her entire childhood. I am protecting her. You are abandoning her, just like you are abandoning me. Her voice cracked. I gave up everything to come here. I married a stranger. I bound myself to a man who told me plainly he would never love me. And I did it anyway because I believed foolishly, perhaps, that somewhere beneath all that ice there was a heart worth saving. There is not. Liar. She grabbed his shirt, forcing him to look at her. I have seen you with Charlotte. I have seen the way you watch me when you think I am not looking. You feel everything, Alexander. You feel too much. That is why you hide. Because if you let yourself feel it fully, you are terrified it will destroy you. He seized her wrists, but did not push her away. What if it does? Then at least you will have lived. Tears streamed down her face. That is more than you are doing now. They stood frozen, her hands fisted in his shirt. His hands wrapped around her wrists. The fire had died to embers. The room was dark and cold. "I do not know how," he whispered. "Then let me teach you." She rose on her toes and kissed him. He went rigid. For one terrible moment she thought he would push her away. Then something broke inside him, and he was kissing her back, his arms wrapping around her, his hands tangling in her hair. He kissed her like a starving man, desperate and hungry and afraid. When they finally broke apart, both of them were trembling. "This changes nothing," he said hoarsely. "This changes everything." He rested his forehead against hers. "I cannot promise you love." "I am not asking for promises. I am asking for a chance. And if I fail you, if I destroy this the way I destroyed my marriage to Margaret, then we will face it together." She cupped his face in her hands. "You are not alone anymore, Alexander. Stop acting like you are." He closed his eyes. She felt the tension drain from his body, felt him lean into her touch, like a man who had forgotten what comfort felt like. "I am terrified," he admitted. "So am I." This could end badly. It could, or it could be the best thing that ever happened to either of us. He opened his eyes. In the faint glow of the dying embers, she saw something she had never seen before. Hope. Fragile and terrified, but there. "Vivienne." He said her name like a prayer. "I do not deserve you. Let me be the judge of that." He kissed her again, softer this time, tender, like she was something precious he was afraid to break. When they parted, the first grey light of dawn was creeping through the windows. They had stood together all night, talking, kissing, learning the landscape of each other's fears. "Charlotte will be awake soon," Vivienne said. "Yes." He did not let go of her hand. "She will want breakfast." "And a walk in the gardens." "And to show you the rabbits." Vivienne smiled. "Sir Whiskers." "She has named all of them now. There is also Lady Fluffington and the Honourable Mr. Carrots." A laugh bubbled up from somewhere deep inside Vivienne. Alexander's lips curved in response, the first genuine smile she had ever seen on his face. "There you are," she said softly. "Where, behind all those walls. I knew you were in there somewhere." He raised her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "Thank you for not giving up on me." "Never." She squeezed his fingers. "Now come. Your daughter is waiting for her father." They walked out of the library together, hand in hand, as the sun rose over Thornbury Hall. But outside the estate walls, the world had not forgotten about Vivienne Ashford. A letter was already on its way from London, carried by urgent messenger. Marcus Pemberton had discovered where she was hiding, and he was coming for her. The letter arrived 3 days later. Vivienne was in the garden with Charlotte, watching the little girl attempt to coax Sir Whiskers out of his burrow with a carrot when the footman appeared with his silver tray. "For you, your grace. Marked urgent." She recognized the handwriting immediately. "Helena. My dearest V," the letter began. "I write with terrible news. Marcus Pemberton has discovered your location. He arrived at my house yesterday, drunk and furious, demanding to know where you were hiding. I told him nothing, but he has connections I do not. He has learned you are at Thornbury Hall. He has learned you married the Duke. And he is mad with rage. He left London this morning. By the time you receive this letter, he may already be on his way. Please, V, be careful. The man I saw yesterday was not the charming gentleman you once knew. He was something darker, something dangerous. Your friend always, Helena." Vivienne's hands trembled. She read the letter twice, then a third time, hoping she had misunderstood. "Vivienne!" Charlotte looked up from her rabbit hunt. "What is wrong? You look frightened." "Nothing, sweetheart. Just news from London." She forced a smile. "Why don't you keep playing? I need to speak with your father." She found Alexander in his study, reviewing estate accounts. He looked up when she entered, and something in her expression made him set down his pen immediately. "What has happened?" She handed him the letter without speaking. His face darkened as he read. When he finished, he set the paper down with careful precision. "He will not touch you." "Alexander, I said he will not touch you." His voice was steel. "This is my home, my land, my wife. If Marcus Pemberton sets foot on this estate, I will destroy him. He is dangerous. So am I." Alexander stood, his tall frame rigid with barely contained fury. "I have tolerated his lies. I have endured his slander against your name, but I will not permit him to threaten you directly. Not ever." Vivienne moved toward him. "I do not want you to fight him. I do not want violence." "What do you want, then? For me to hide, to let him believe he has power over us? I want you to be safe. I want Charlotte to be safe." His expression softened. He cupped her face in his hands. "Nothing will happen to Charlotte. Nothing will happen to you. I promise." "You cannot make that promise." "I can, and I do." He kissed her forehead. "I have spent 6 years being afraid, Vivienne. Afraid of loss, afraid of love, afraid of everything. You taught me that fear is not a life. If Marcus Pemberton wants a confrontation, he will have one, and he will learn exactly what happens to men who threaten the Duchess of Ashworth." The next 2 days passed in tense anticipation. Alexander doubled the household staff and hired additional men from the village to patrol the estate grounds. He refused to let Vivienne or Charlotte leave the house without escort. Charlotte noticed the tension immediately. "Papa, why are there so many new servants? And why must I stay inside? I want to see the rabbits." "The rabbits will still be there tomorrow, sweetheart. But Sir Whiskers expects me. He will think I have abandoned him." Alexander knelt before his daughter. "Listen to me, Charlotte. There is a man coming who might cause trouble. I need you to stay close to the house until he is gone. Can you do that for me?" Charlotte's grey eyes widened. "What kind of trouble? The kind that adults must handle. You do not need to worry. I will protect you." "And Vivienne, will you protect her too?" "With my life." Charlotte nodded solemnly. Then she threw her arms around her father's neck. "I love you, Papa." Alexander held her tight, his eyes meeting Vivienne's over his daughter's head. "I love you too, Charlotte, more than anything." When Charlotte finally released him and ran off to find Aunt Eleanor, Vivienne moved to Alexander's side. "She is stronger than you think." "She should not have to be strong. She is 6 years old. Children are resilient. They survive things that would break adults." Alexander's jaw tightened. "I wanted to give her a different life, a safe life, and instead I have brought danger to her doorstep." "Marcus is not coming for Charlotte. He is coming for me." Then he should have stayed in London, because coming here was the worst mistake of his miserable life. Marcus Pemberton arrived on the 3rd day. It was late afternoon when the butler announced that a gentleman was at the door demanding an audience with the Duke. "Tell him I am not receiving visitors," Alexander said coolly. "Your Grace, he was most insistent. He says he will not leave until he speaks with you, and with—" The butler hesitated. "With Lady Vivienne." Vivienne's stomach dropped. "Let him in." "Vivienne, no. Let him in," she repeated. "If we refuse to see him, he will only return, Again and again. We must end this. Alexander's hands clenched at his sides. If he says one word against you, one word, I will throw him out myself. I know. The butler escorted Marcus into the drawing room. Vivienne had not seen him since the night of the ball, and she was shocked by how much he had changed. He was thinner. His golden hair was dishevelled. His blue eyes, once sparkling with charm, were bloodshot and wild. "Vivienne," he said her name like a curse. "So this is where you ran, to the arms of your lover." "Watch your tongue, Pemberton." Alexander stepped forward. "Or what you will have me thrown out. You cannot silence me forever, Ashworth. The whole of London knows what you did. You seduced my fiancée. You corrupted an innocent woman. You stole her from me." "You discarded her." Alexander's voice was ice. "You broke your engagement to her in the middle of a ballroom. You called her unwanted, unnecessary, disposable. And now you dare claim she was stolen from you." "I was going to take her back." Marcus's composure cracked. "I was going to apologize, to explain, but before I could she disappeared into your carriage like a common whore." Alexander moved so fast, Vivienne barely saw it. One moment he was standing beside her. The next, his fist connected with Marcus's jaw. Marcus staggered backward, crashing into a side table and sending a vase shattering to the floor. "Say that word again," Alexander said softly. "I dare you." Marcus wiped blood from his lip. His eyes were murderous. "You think you have won Ashworth. You think marrying her protects her. I will destroy you both. I will tell everyone the truth. That your precious Duchess was warming your bed months before I ended things, that your daughter is not even yours, that your entire perfect life is a lie." Vivienne felt the blood drain from her face. "Charlotte is his daughter. You know that." Do I know anything for certain? All I know is what I saw 3 years ago. A young duke paying far too much attention to a debutante who was not his wife. A married man staring at my fiancée like she was the only woman in the room. "I never met Vivienne before the night of the ball," Alexander said. "Your accusations are fantasy. Are they? Prove it. Prove you never touched her. Prove your bastard daughter is really yours." Marcus laughed a harsh, ugly sound. "You cannot, and neither can anyone else, so I will say whatever I like, and London will believe me, because London always believes the worst." Vivienne stepped forward. "What do you want, Marcus? Why are you really here?" His wild eyes fixed on her. "I want you to come back." "I beg your pardon." "Come back to London. Annul this sham of a marriage. Tell everyone you made a mistake. That you were confused, manipulated, taken advantage of. I will forgive you. We can start again." "You are insane." "I am in love with you." The words burst out of him. "I have been in love with you since the moment we met. I made mistakes. I know that. I was weak. I was foolish. But I never stopped loving you, Vivienne. Not for a single moment." Vivienne stared at the man she had once planned to marry, the man she had once believed she loved. He looked broken, desperate, pathetic. "Marcus." Her voice was calm. "You never loved me. You loved the idea of me, the way I made you look, the way I improved your reputation. But love, real love, you do not know the meaning of the word. I could learn. I could be better. Just give me another chance." "No. Vivienne, please." I said no. She raised her hand, showing him the ring on her finger. "I am married now. To a man who respects me, who protects me, who has shown me more care in a few weeks than you showed me in 3 years. He does not love you. He told you himself. A marriage of convenience. That is all this is. That is between my husband and me. It is none of your concern. Marcus's face twisted. So that is your answer. You would rather be the trophy wife of a cold, loveless duke than give me another chance. Yes. She met his eyes without flinching. 1,000 times. Yes. Something snapped behind Marcus's eyes. He lunged for her. Alexander was faster. He caught Marcus by the collar and hurled him backward. Marcus hit the floor hard, the breath knocked out of him. Touch her, and I will kill you. Alexander stood over him, every line of his body radiating controlled violence. That is not a threat, Pemberton. It is a promise. Marcus crawled to his feet, panting. You cannot keep me away forever. She was mine first. She was never yours. She was a prize you thought you had won. But Vivienne Ashford does not belong to anyone. She chose me. She chose this life. And your opinion on the matter is utterly irrelevant. This is not over. Yes, it is. Alexander's voice was final. Leave my home. Leave my land. If I see your face again, I will have you arrested for trespassing. And if you continue to spread lies about my wife, I will destroy you in ways you cannot imagine. I have money. I have influence. I have the ear of men who could end your family's standing in society with a single word. Do not test me. Marcus looked between them, his handsome face contorted with hatred. Then, without another word, he turned and stormed out of the room. They heard the front door slam, heard hoofbeats thundering down the drive, and then silence. Vivienne let out a breath she had not known she was holding. Her legs gave way beneath her. Alexander caught her before she hit the floor. I have you. I have you. He is gone. He is gone. He will come back. He will never stop. Let him try. Alexander helped her to a chair. I meant every word I said. I will protect you, Vivienne, no matter what it takes. She looked up at him, this man who had been a stranger mere weeks ago, this man who had built walls around his heart so high she thought she would never breach them, this man who had just defended her with the ferocity of a lion. You called me your wife. You are my wife. But before, you always said it like a formality, a title. This time you said it like... She could not find the words. Like I meant it. His grey eyes softened. Because I do. God help me, Vivienne. I fought it. I told myself I could not feel this way. I swore I would never allow myself to care about anyone ever again. But you made that impossible. Her heart stuttered. What are you saying? I am saying that somewhere between your first challenge and your last, I fell in love with you. He knelt before her, taking her hands in his. I love your courage. I love your kindness. I love the way you see right through me, past all my defences, to the broken man underneath. I love the way you make Charlotte laugh. I love the way you refuse to let me hide. Tears spilled down Vivienne's cheeks. Alexander, I know I promised you a marriage without love. I know I told you I had nothing to give. But I was wrong. Or perhaps you changed me. Either way, I cannot pretend any more. He kissed her hands. I love you, Vivienne. Not because I need you. Not because you saved me. But because you are the most extraordinary woman I have ever known. And I would be a fool not to spend the rest of my life telling you so. She slid from the chair to the floor, kneeling before him. She took his face in her hands. I love you too, she whispered. I think I have loved you since the night you appeared in that carriage like a dark angel coming to my rescue. I was just too afraid to admit it. He kissed her then, deep and fierce and full of everything they had both been too scared to say. When they finally broke apart, both of them were crying. Well, Aunt Eleanor's voice came from the doorway. It is about time. They turned to find her watching them with an expression of deep satisfaction. How long have you been standing there? Alexander demanded. Long enough to hear that insufferable Pemberton creature get what he deserved, and long enough to see my nephew finally admit he has a heart. She smiled. I am proud of you, Alexander. Both of you. Charlotte appeared behind her, clutching Aunt Eleanor's skirt. Is the bad man gone? He is gone, sweetheart. Vivienne held out her arms. Charlotte ran to her, burying her face in Vivienne's shoulder. I was scared. I heard shouting. I know. I am sorry, but your father protected us. He was very brave. Charlotte lifted her head and looked at Alexander. Papa, will the bad man come back? Alexander reached out and stroked his daughter's hair. No, Charlotte, he will not come back. I will not let him. Promise. I promise. Charlotte considered this. Then she threw her arms around both of them, pulling her father and Vivienne into a tangled embrace. I am glad you are my mamma now, she whispered to Vivienne. I prayed for you. Every night before bed, I prayed for someone to love Papa and make him smile again. Vivienne felt her heart crack open. Your prayers were answered, sweetheart. I know. Charlotte beamed. God is very clever. That night, after Charlotte was asleep and the house was quiet, Alexander came to Vivienne's chambers. I should not be here, he said from the doorway. It is not proper. Vivienne laughed. We are married. I think propriety no longer applies. We have never... He hesitated. Our marriage has not been consummated. She rose from her chair and moved toward him. Is that what you are trying to say? I did not want to pressure you. I told you this would be a partnership, a companionship. I did not expect... Expect what? To fall in love with your wife. She took his hand and pulled him into the room. Neither did I. And yet here we are. Here we are. His voice was rough. Alexander! She stood on her toes and kissed him softly. I do not want a companionship anymore. I do not want a partnership of convenience. I want a real marriage. I want you. His control shattered. He swept her into his arms and kissed her with 6 years of suppressed longing. They did not speak again for a very long time. In the morning, Vivienne woke to find Alexander watching her sleep. The early light caught the silver in his grey eyes and turned his dark hair to silk. Good morning, she murmured. Good morning, wife. She smiled. That sounded different too. Everything is different now. He traced a finger down her cheek. I feel like I've been asleep for 6 years, and you woke me up. I feel like I've been running my whole life, and I've finally found a place to stop. He pulled her close. Stay. Forever. I intend to. They lay together in comfortable silence, listening to the birds outside the window, feeling the warmth of the sun on their faces. Then Charlotte's voice echoed down the hallway. Vivienne, Papa. It is breakfast time. Aunt Eleanor says if you do not come down soon, she will eat all the scones herself. Alexander groaned. Our daughter has no sense of timing. Vivienne laughed. Our daughter is perfect. She kissed him quickly and slipped out of bed. Come on, we cannot let Aunt Eleanor have all the scones. They dressed quickly and went down to breakfast together. Charlotte was already seated at the table, bouncing with energy. Papa, you came from Vivienne's room. Does that mean you are not fighting anymore? Aunt Eleanor choked on her tea. We were never fighting, sweetheart, Alexander said carefully. Then why did you always look so sad when you looked at her? And why did you sleep in separate rooms? And why— Charlotte. Aunt Eleanor recovered her composure. Some questions are not appropriate for the breakfast table. But— Eat your eggs. Charlotte pouted but obeyed. Vivienne caught Alexander's eye across the table. He was smiling, actually smiling. Not the polite half-smile he wore like a mask. A real, genuine smile that reached his eyes and transformed his entire face. She smiled back, and for the first time since the night of the Hartwell ball, she felt like she was exactly where she belonged. But the world beyond Thornbury Hall had not forgotten about her. That afternoon, another letter arrived. This one bore an official seal. It was from her father. You have disgraced our family name beyond repair, the letter read. Your hasty marriage to Ashworth confirms every rumour Pemberton has spread. I want nothing more to do with you. You are no longer my daughter. Vivienne read the words 3 times. Each time they hurt a little less. Bad news. Alexander appeared at her shoulder. She handed him the letter. She watched his face darken as he read. Your father is a fool. My father is protecting himself, as he always has. She took the letter back and walked to the fireplace. I used to dream of making him proud, of being the perfect daughter, the perfect debutante, the perfect wife to whoever he chose for me. I wasted so many years trying to earn his love. And now, she dropped the letter into the flames. Now I realize he never had love to give. Not to me. Not to anyone. She turned to face her husband. But you do. Charlotte does. Aunt Eleanor does in her terrifying way. I have more love in this house than I ever had in my father's. Alexander crossed the room and took her in his arms. You will always have love here. Always. I know. She rested her head against his chest. That is what makes it home. Outside, the sun was setting over Thornbury Hall. Inside, a family was healing. And Marcus Pemberton was already planning his next move. Marcus Pemberton's next move came 3 weeks later. Alexander and Vivienne had decided to return to London for the season. Not to hide, not to run, but to face society directly and prove that no amount of slander could touch them. Are you certain about this? Aunt Eleanor asked the morning of their departure. London will be brutal. London will be what it has always been, Vivienne replied. A battlefield. But this time I am not fighting alone. Alexander took her hand. We face them together, all of us. Charlotte bounced on her toes with excitement. I have never been to London. Will there be shops and parks and other children to play with? All of those things and more, Vivienne promised. But first, we must attend some very dull parties where grown-ups talk about nothing interesting. Why? Because grown-ups are strange creatures, sweetheart. We do many things that make no sense. The journey to London took most of the day. By the time they arrived at Ashworth House, the Duke's grand residence in Mayfair twilight was falling over the city. Vivienne stepped out of the carriage and looked up at the imposing facade. This was her home now, her place in the world. Intimidating, is it not? Alexander appeared beside her. A little. The first Duchess felt the same way. She told my grandmother that the house looked like it wanted to swallow her whole. What happened? She swallowed it instead, remade every room, terrorized the staff into adoration. By the time she died, the house was more hers than it had ever been anyone else's. Vivienne smiled. I like her already. You would have. She was formidable. He offered his arm. Shall we? They walked into Ashworth House together. The first test came 3 days later at Lady Pemberton's annual spring ball. Yes, Lady Pemberton, Marcus's mother. This is madness, Aunt Eleanor declared when the invitation arrived.
She is obviously trying to humiliate you. You cannot possibly attend. We must attend, Alexander said calmly. If we refuse, it will look like we have something to hide. If we appear confident and united, it will show that we fear nothing. And if Marcus is there, then Marcus will learn what happens when he faces us on equal ground.
Vivienne dressed carefully for the ball. Her gown was deep emerald green, a colour that brought out the warmth in her honey-coloured eyes. The Ashworth emeralds glittered at her throat, a wedding gift from Alexander that had belonged to his grandmother. You look like a queen, Charlotte breathed when she saw her. Queens have crowns, sweetheart. You have something better. You have Papa. Vivienne kissed the top of her head. I certainly do. Alexander was waiting in the entrance hall. He wore black evening clothes that made his grey eyes look like silver. When he saw Vivienne descending the staircase, he went very still. What? She stopped halfway down. Is something wrong? Nothing is wrong. His voice was rough. I'm simply trying to remember how to breathe. Heat flooded her cheeks. Flatterer. Truth-teller. He offered his hand as she reached the bottom step. Every man at that ball will want you. Every woman will envy you. And none of them will matter because you are mine. Possessive? Absolutely. He kissed her hand. Shall we go scandalize society? I thought you would never ask. The Pemberton ballroom was packed. Every notable family in London had turned out drawn by the promise of drama. Whispers rippled through the crowd as the Duke and Duchess of Ashworth were announced. Vivienne felt 1,000 eyes upon her, judging, assessing, waiting for her to falter. She did not falter. She walked into that ballroom on her husband's arm with her head high and her spine straight. She smiled at acquaintances. She nodded at strangers. She behaved as if she owned every inch of the room. Remarkable, Alexander murmured. You are utterly remarkable. I learned from the best. I taught you nothing. You taught me that I am worth fighting for. Everything else followed from that. Lady Helena Blackwood found them near the refreshment table. Her face was alight with joy. Vivienne, thank God you are here. I have been dying to see you properly. They embraced tightly. You look well, Helena said, pulling back to study her friend. Better than well. You look happy. I am happy. And His Grace? Helena glanced at Alexander with curiosity. The rumours say he never smiles, that he is cold as ice, that he married you for political advantage. The rumours are wrong about many things. As if to prove her point, Alexander returned from fetching champagne. He handed a glass to Vivienne with a smile that made Helena's eyebrows climb toward her hairline. Lady Helena, a pleasure to see you again. The pleasure is mine, Your Grace. Helena's voice was faint with surprise. I see married life agrees with you. It does, more than I ever imagined possible. Helena looked between them with growing wonder. Well, this is unexpected. What is love? Helena laughed. Actual, genuine, visible love. And here I thought you had married for convenience. We did, Vivienne said. But somewhere along the way, convenience transformed into something else entirely. How romantic. Do not sound so shocked. Romance does still exist, Helena, even among the aristocracy. The orchestra struck up a waltz. Alexander set down his champagne glass and turned to Vivienne. Dance with me. In front of everyone. Especially in front of everyone. He led her onto the floor. They moved together as if they had been dancing for years, their bodies perfectly attuned. Vivienne was aware of the stares, the whispers, the open curiosity on every face around them. But she was also aware of Alexander's hand at her waist. His eyes locked on hers. The slight curve of his lips as he guided her through the steps. "They are watching," she said. "Let them watch. They are talking. Let them talk." He pulled her slightly closer than was proper. "None of them matter. Only you." The waltz ended. The crowd applauded politely. And then a voice cut through the murmur. "How touching! The Duke and his whore putting on a show." Marcus Pemberton stood at the edge of the dance floor. He was drunk. Vivienne could see it in his swaying stance, his flushed cheeks, the glassy sheen of his eyes. The room went silent. "Pemberton!" Alexander's voice was ice. "I warned you. You warned me to stay away from your estate. This is not your estate, Ashworth. This is my mother's ballroom, and I will say whatever I please in my mother's house." Vivienne stepped forward. "Marcus, you are embarrassing yourself." "I am embarrassing myself. You are the one who spread her legs for a duke while wearing my ring. You are the one who—" Alexander moved. But before he could reach Marcus, another man stepped between them. He was older, distinguished with silver hair and the bearing of someone accustomed to authority. "That is quite enough, Mr. Pemberton." The man's voice was quiet, but carried across the silent room. "You will apologize to the Duchess immediately." Marcus laughed. "And who the hell are you to give me orders?" "I am Lord Hartwell. This is my wife's ball, not your mother's. Lady Pemberton hosts it, but we provide the venue and the guest list." Lord Hartwell's eyes were cold. "And you are no longer welcome here." "You cannot throw me out. My mother—" "Your mother has already left the room in shame, as should you." Lord Hartwell signalled to 2 footmen. "Escort Mr. Pemberton to his carriage. Ensure he does not return." The footman flanked Marcus. For a moment, Vivienne thought he might fight. Then his shoulders slumped. "This is not over," he said, glaring at Alexander. "Yes, it is." Lord Hartwell nodded to the footman. "Remove him." They half-carried Marcus from the ballroom. The doors closed behind them. The silence stretched for an agonizing moment. Then Lord Hartwell turned to Vivienne and bowed deeply. "Your Grace, please accept my sincere apologies. No lady should be subjected to such vulgarity." "Thank you, Lord Hartwell. Your intervention was most appreciated. It was nothing less than any gentleman would do." He straightened and raised his voice so the entire room could hear. "Let it be known that the Duke and Duchess of Ashworth have my complete support. Anyone who speaks ill of them in my presence will find themselves unwelcome in my home." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Then, one by one, other voices joined in. "And mine," said Lord Ashford, stepping forward. "And mine," added Lady Catherine Sinclair, Helena's sister. "And mine." Sir Edward Hartley, a member of Parliament known for his integrity. Within moments, a dozen of the most prominent figures in London society had publicly declared their allegiance. The tide had turned. Vivienne felt tears prick her eyes. She had expected hostility. She had prepared for battle. Instead, she had found allies. "It seems you have more friends than you knew," Alexander murmured. "It seems I do." He took her hand and raised it to his lips. "And now, wife, I believe this calls for another dance." They took the floor again. This time, when they danced, the whispers were of admiration rather than scandal. By the end of the season, the story of the Hartwell Ball had spread throughout London. Marcus Pemberton's public disgrace became the talk of every drawing room. His creditors, emboldened by his fall from grace, began demanding repayment of his gambling debts. Within months, he was forced to flee to the continent to escape imprisonment. Vivienne heard the news without satisfaction. "He destroyed himself," she told Alexander. "I did not have to do anything." "You gave him the rope. He chose to hang himself with it." "I suppose." She stared out the window at the London streets below. "I thought I would feel victorious. Instead, I just feel sad. He had so much potential. He threw it all away for pride and pleasure." Alexander stood behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. "Some people cannot be saved, no matter how hard you try." "I know. I just wish—" "What?" "I wish I had seen it sooner. I wish I had not wasted 3 years on a man who was never worthy of me." "Those 3 years led you to me." He kissed her temple. "I cannot regret anything that brought you into my life." She turned in his arms. "You have become rather romantic, Your Grace." "I have an excellent teacher." The following spring, Vivienne opened her school. It was a small building near the edge of London, purchased with her own funds and staffed with teachers she had handpicked. The students were daughters of working families, girls who would otherwise have no access to education. Charlotte insisted on attending the opening ceremony. "These girls are lucky," she announced, surveying the classroom. "They get to learn things. When I was little, my governess only wanted to teach me needlework. Needlework is boring." "What would you prefer to learn?" Vivienne asked. "Everything. Mathematics, science, languages. How to run an estate like Papa does." Charlotte's grey eyes sparkled. "I want to know how the world works, not just how to decorate it." Vivienne looked at this fierce, brilliant child who had stolen her heart from the first moment. "Then you shall learn everything. I promise." Alexander's reforms in Parliament proceeded more slowly, but they proceeded. He championed laws to protect tenant farmers, to regulate working conditions in factories, to ensure fair wages for labourers. He was not always successful, but he never stopped trying. "You are becoming quite the radical," Vivienne teased him one evening. "I prefer the term progressive. The other lords prefer the term nuisance." He laughed, a sound that still made her heart flutter, even after a year of marriage. "Let them. I am too wealthy and too powerful for them to ignore. Eventually they will come around. And if they do not, then I will outlive them." He pulled her onto his lap. "I am patient. I can wait." "You waited 3 years for me." "I would have waited 30. She kissed him. "I am glad you did not have to." The years passed in a rhythm of joy and challenge, triumph and setback. Charlotte grew from a lonely little girl into a confident young woman with her father's sharp mind and her mother's fierce heart. She made her debut at 17 and promptly scandalized society by announcing that she had no interest in marriage until she had finished her education. "I want to attend university," she declared. "Oxford or Cambridge, I do not care which." "Women are not permitted at university," Alexander reminded her. "Then I will be the first, or I will make them change the rules. Either way, I am going." Vivienne watched this exchange with a mixture of pride and terror. "You have created a monster," she told Alexander later. I have created a force of nature. There is a difference. Is there? Ask me again when she has conquered Parliament. Thomas arrived 2 years into their marriage, a serious-faced boy with Vivienne's honey-coloured eyes and Alexander's stubborn jaw. Eleanor followed 3 years later, a wild, laughing child who seemed determined to climb every tree and befriend every animal on the estate. William came last, a dreamer who spent more time with his books than with people. He reminded Vivienne of herself as a child, lost in stories, searching for magic in the pages of novels. 4 children, Alexander said one evening, surveying the chaos of the nursery. When I asked you to marry me, I offered you a partnership, a companionship. I never imagined this. Regrets? Not one. He caught her hand and pulled her close. This is everything I never knew I wanted. 10 years after the night of the Hartwell ball, Vivienne stood in the garden of Thornbury Hall, watching her children play. Charlotte, now 16, was teaching Thomas how to climb the oak tree near the rabbit warren. Eleanor, 7, was chasing butterflies with single-minded determination. William, 5, sat beneath an apple tree, making up elaborate stories about dragons and knights. Alexander appeared at her side and took her hand. What are you thinking about? That night. The night everything changed. The Pemberton ball. No, the night you appeared in your carriage and told me to get in before the vultures descended. She leaned against him. I was so angry, so hurt, so certain that my life was over. And now I know it was just beginning. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the life they had built unfold before them. Do you ever think about what would have happened if you had not come for me that night? Vivienne asked. I try not to. I would have gone back to my father's house. I would have been destroyed by the scandal. I might have ended up married to some minor nobleman who needed my dowry and did not care about my reputation. That is a bleak alternative. It is. She turned to face him. You saved me, Alexander. Not just that night, but every day since. You showed me that I was worthy of love, that I did not have to settle for less than I deserved. His grey eyes softened. You saved me too. I was drowning in my own grief, my own fear. I had convinced myself that feeling nothing was safer than risking pain. You taught me that I was wrong. We saved each other then. We did. He cupped her face in his hands, and I will spend the rest of my life being grateful for it. He kissed her slow and sweet, with all the tenderness of a decade of love. Mother, father, Charlotte's voice rang out across the garden. Thomas is stuck in the tree again. They broke apart laughing. Coming! Vivienne called back. Alexander groaned. That boy has your stubbornness. He has your inability to ask for help. Fair point. They walked toward the tree together, hand in hand. Thomas was indeed stuck, wedged between 2 branches about 15 feet off the ground. His face was red with embarrassment. I told him not to climb so high, Charlotte said, her arms crossed. He never listens. I listen. I simply choose to disagree. That is the same as not listening. It is not.
It absolutely is. Children, Alexander raised a hand. Thomas, stop squirming. You are making it worse. Charlotte, stop being smug. Eleanor, put down that frog. William, keep narrating if you like. It is oddly soothing. William looked up from his apple tree, and the brave knight found himself trapped in the enchanted oak, unable to escape without the help of his wise and powerful father. Thank you, William. Alexander climbed the tree with the ease of a man who had done it many times before. Within minutes, Thomas was safely on the ground, dusty and chastened. Next time, listen to your sister, Vivienne said. She is bossy. She is usually right. There is a difference. Charlotte preened. Thomas scowled.
Eleanor released the frog. William returned to his story. And Vivienne looked at her family, this beautiful, chaotic, imperfect family, and felt her heart overflow. "I love you," she said to Alexander as he dropped from the lowest branch. "I love you too." He brushed leaves from his hair. "Even when our children are determined to give me grey hairs." "You already have grey hairs." "I have distinguished highlights. Whatever helps you sleep at night." He pulled her close and kissed her forehead. "You help me sleep at night. You always have." That evening, after the children were in bed and the house was quiet, Alexander and Vivienne stood on the terrace overlooking the gardens. "Aunt Eleanor is moving to Bath," Alexander said. "She told me this morning. She says she is too old to manage our chaos any longer. She has been saying that for 5 years. This time she means it." He smiled. "She has purchased a cottage near Clara's dressmaking shop. She wants to spend her remaining years terrorizing the local gentry. She will be magnificent at it. She will." He took Vivienne's hand. "I never thanked her properly for bringing you into my life. You can thank her by visiting often, and by naming our next child after her." Alexander choked. "Our next child?" Vivienne placed a hand on her stomach. "I was going to wait to tell you, but it seems the moment has arrived." His grey eyes went wide. Then a smile broke across his face, so bright and unguarded that it took her breath away. "Another child?" "Another child." She laughed at his expression. "You would think by now you would be used to the news." "I will never be used to it." He swept her into his arms, spinning her gently. "Every time is a miracle. Every time is a gift I do not deserve." "You deserve everything, Alexander. You always have. You were just too afraid to claim it." He set her down and cradled her face in his hands. "I am not afraid any more. You cured me of that." "I did not cure you. I simply reminded you how to be brave." "Same thing. Not even close." He kissed her then under the stars, with the night breeze carrying the scent of roses from the garden below. When they finally pulled apart, Vivienne rested her head against his chest. "I used to think that leaving my broken engagement without a word was the worst moment of my life. I thought it was the end of everything. And now I know it was the beginning. The carriage that came for me that night did not rescue me from scandal. It delivered me to exactly where I was meant to be." "And where is that?" She looked up at him, at this man who had been a stranger and become her world. "Home," she said. "With you." Alexander kissed her forehead. "I loved you before you knew my name. I love you more with every passing day. And I will love you until my last breath and beyond." That is very poetic. I learned from the best. Behind them, the nursery window glowed with soft candlelight. Somewhere inside, Charlotte was probably reading past her bedtime. Thomas was probably plotting his next tree-climbing adventure. Eleanor was probably hiding another frog under her pillow. And William was probably dreaming of dragons. Their life was not perfect. It was messy and loud and full of unexpected challenges. But it was theirs, built from the ruins of broken promises and shattered expectations, forged in the fire of fear and doubt, strengthened by every choice they had made to love each other again and again every single day. Vivienne had once believed that fairy tales were lies, that happily ever after was a myth designed to make ordinary people feel inadequate. She knew better now. Happily ever after was not a destination. It was a choice, a daily commitment to show up to try to love even when it was hard. And she had chosen it. With Alexander, with their children. with this life that was more beautiful than any story she had ever read. The night wrapped around them like a blessing. The stars burned overhead like promises kept. And Vivienne Ashford, once a woman with nothing, now stood in the arms of the man who had given her everything. Not because he rescued her, but because they had rescued each other. That was the truth of love, she realized. Not grand gestures or perfect moments, but two imperfect people choosing each other over and over through every storm and every sunrise. She had made that choice the night she stepped into his carriage. She would make it again tomorrow. And every day after that for the rest of her life. This was her story, her love, her home, and it was at last complete.